Hello, everyone, and welcome to Collector's Vault at Chasen Galleries. This is episode 3. My name is James. I am your host for today, and I happen to be with someone who is an artist, but someone I also like to call a friend, a colleague, Collin Rowland. Good morning.
Good morning.
First up, great photo, by the way. I like the photo you have up there. Before we get started and look at some of your work, I always heard that you were into music, and I was curious if what came first. Was it music or was it the art? How did that whole transpire, if you will?
Well, that's a good question. When I was a child and I first discovered art, I dove deep and started drawing and painting every day, and this went on for years. And at some point, I think through art, I came out of my shell and got into dancing and break dancing, and I played drums in a bunch of bands in high school, and then eventually moved to Cincinnati, where I went to University of Cincinnati for music and art. And to me, art and music are kind of the same thing, different mediums of the same thing.
Good thing.
Just to
So you
express one.
mentioned Cincinnati. That was going to be one of my
Yeah.
questions. So I didn't know you're now a Sarasota
Yeah.
artist, but you grew up in Cincinnati?
Yes, I grew up in Maysville, Kentucky, a little small country town. Nothing to do there but draw and paint and play in the woods. And then when I lived in Cincinnati, lived there most of my life. And then my wife and 3 kids and I moved here to Sarasota about 4 years ago.
Nice. Now, do you miss the cold weather?
No, do not.
No. No.
Not at all.
Oh, so let's talk about your work a little bit. What kind of what is your medium? Like what medium do you work in?
I would say mixed media. When I dove back into my art professionally, it was as a photographer. And the more I did photography, the more I steered more into fine art photography. And then that turned into wall sculpture. I started laser cutting a lot of designs out of metal. And then I was drawing and painting a lot, and yeah. So now I'm kind of doing, well, I just say mixed media because I do all kinds of things. I incorporate photography and metal and resin and paint and all kinds of things into my work.
So you like to be sort of non-traditional as far as, I don't see you, with a canvas on the easel painting, with a palette in your hand. You like getting your hands dirty, I think, and getting into it.
Yes, I do. And I try to embrace traditional approaches, but they don't last long. Not that I'm against the traditional approaches. I was trained traditionally as a painter. But, I think just the more I get into the studio, I start playing, that childlike spirit. And then it just turns into slinging and trying and experimenting like a scientist. And yeah.
That's fabulous. So in the photo that we're looking at right now, I
Yes.
see 3 different pieces. You want to maybe walk us through a few pieces that you're working on?
Sure. This was from a recent show that we had here at Chasen Galleries. The birds at the top are some of my more popular work I've been doing recently. I can show you more images of that in a
Please.
minute. But you can see over on the left side of the screen the hand. That was an underwater photo shoot I did with a friend of mine, and I just always love the surrealness of how light comes through the water, especially when you're laying at the bottom of a pool looking straight up, and just the way that light moves through how it bends through the
Sure.
water. And then that piece is called The Rescue. It's very spiritual, very meaningful piece, just kind of being pulled up out of the depths, from the depths or the darkness up into the light. At least that's the metaphor. Lots of layers of resin and glass and different things embedded in that. And then the piece hanging over the dresser there to my right, if I'm from my perspective, or left in the picture, that's an experiment I was doing with a mirror and resin. And there's trees, and it's a above view of water, but it's all about the way we see ourselves.
Very cool.
Reflections.
Very cool. Can you show us maybe a few others? Can you
Sure.
scan through?
Yeah, absolutely.
There we go.
Here's some other images. That's the rescue piece on the right. You can see on the left, those are some of my ocean edge of the ocean sculptures.
Great.
When we first moved here, I fell in love with, of course, I fell in love with the ocean. It's easy to. That energy where the land meets the waters, that feeling you get with your toes in the sand.
You clearly see it in these. I love those. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to capture that without being too obvious. I'm just like, so how does one capture the beauty of nature? But just kind of exploring that. Here are some more of my birds. Actually, this was an installation that we did together.
You know what? The minute I saw that, I smiled. I remember, I remember not only seeing you on a ladder trying to lay this out, but having two dogs,
Oh, right.
there's dogs all around you while you were trying to navigate all of this. And that looks unbelievable, especially with the skylight and that light coming through.
Yeah, that was a fun project. I've done several installations like that since then. They seems to be kind of popular right now. I'm enjoying making these birds. Here's an older piece called Tree of Life. I did this with my old business partner and very dear friend Dan Auger. We created an art collaboration business called Rowland Auger. So we basically, he owned a metal shop and I had a lot of ideas, and so we would get together and I would draw up concepts, and then we would go back and forth in developing those concepts. So this was for a client in Xenia, Ohio. It was through an interior designer that wanted an entire wall piece of art.
You did
so
it.
We did it. That's actually 23 feet wide by 9 feet tall.
Is that one piece?
It's actually 11 pieces of metal. You can see from the side angle the standoffs that make it float off the wall. They wanted it rusted on purpose, and then I resin coated it, so it's probably 80% rusted. It's
terrific.
And then here's another installation that we did called The Descendants of Light. It's all about seed pods coming from the source of life there on the left. And
how is that illuminated?
That actually, we actually had to hire an electrician to come out and fill that wall with wiring. Behind the credenza on the floor there, there's a panel in the wall that will let you use a remote control to dim the lights on and off. We melted the acrylic through the openings of the metal to get them to get the three-dimensional shapes, as you can see here.
Gorgeous. And
I love how the plexiglass, the acrylic in the background, lets the light spill out onto the wall. Yeah, you can see it better there.
Fabulous. So it's interesting when I'm looking at these pieces, thinking of who your collectors would be. I see them not only as individuals in their home, like the tree, but I also see a tremendous amount of like commercial applications with your work. Like I could see these giant pieces in lobbies of buildings and things like that.
I'm with you on that. I would love to see that happen. That's happened a few times, more with hospitals and corporate environments.
Nice. I do have a question.
Another tree.
Oh, yes. Another tree. I do have a question with the hand coming up. We don't have to go back to it, but you mentioned the spirit of the hand. Does as you're creating these works, whether it's the ocean scenes or the trees or the water, does your faith impact any of these pieces? Is there some spiritual element behind the works?
Very much so. Yeah. To get back to that piece. That's called The Rescue. I think for me, I'm always looking for metaphors that represent life. I think there's there's definitely a place for art therapy and people kind of working through their struggles in life through their art. For me, I think I see art as a vehicle of communication. And so I kind of want to I want to inspire people. I want to leave the world a better place when I die, so to speak. And so when I think of it, I just like, well, when I die and people are looking at my work and, wow, he was a good guy. What does his work represent? I want it to be something that could really bless or encourage or inspire people. So I'm always looking for metaphors, trying to look at the beauty and the goodness in the world and capture that.
So that was going to be one of my questions. Like, what are you looking for your collectors to take out of your work? So I'm just not looking at a beautiful image. They're getting this full life experience out of your pieces, the way I see it.
Yeah, I'm always looking for stories. When I start a piece of art, sometimes I have no idea what it's going to be. It's just got this idea I'm excited about, and I feel like I need to develop it. And as I go down that path of doing that, then it starts to reveal itself. And so I'm always looking, I'm searching for what the piece is supposed to be. And almost 100% of the time, it ends up being a little different than what I originally thought, which is
Sure.
part of the whole dying to yourself in the process. Like, let the work have its own life is something I get excited about. And yeah, I'm looking for those stories that end up showing up in the work.
Do you have a circle of artists that you work with? So like as you're creating these, are you always alone in your studio? Do you look for influences from other artists or inspiration perhaps from other artists?
I have a lot of friends that inspire me, like Evan Hildebrandt, Allison Shepard, two very dear friends of mine that are both full-time professional artists. Um, eh, yeah, and then there's some famous people like Picasso and Dali and different influences that I've always liked. Actually, one of my teachers that art professor I had. He learned a lot of mid-century modern style abstract painting, and so learning from him, I kind of really dove into the abstract world for the longest time, and I kind of got burned out on it, and so now I'm kind of like, well, I kind of dabble between abstract and realism, or
Yeah, and I mean, the two approaches are clear in your work, but the range to me is what's impressive. I mean, from the ocean pictures to the spiritual hand to the trees, the birds I think are magnificent. I mean, that's absolutely my favorite. Those are,
thanks.
I just feel like they're I mean, there's so much movement when I look at these. And
Yeah.
each one of these is it metal? Is it glass? What are each of the
These are
birds?
metal. I have some other images of the birds here, much better that I had prepared. Here's another piece here, Siesta Key. Um, and yeah, and there's one of the award ceremonies we have, and that's Dan Auger to the right of me. That was at an international art competition where we won some
I
awards.
think I know her. She's from since she is
Yeah, Litsa Spanos. Yes.
absolutely. I did an art expo with her about 10 years ago. Yeah,
Oh, nice.
terrific person. I recognized her immediately.
Yeah, we won 6 years in a row. We won
Wow.
art awards through
Talk
her.
about a small world. Yeah, look at that.
I know, it's so funny. It's art talk. But yeah, so I had some more bird images. So I, again, with the birds, I go to the beach, I start drawing these birds, kind of getting obsessed with them. Here's an event that we had here actually at Chasen Gallery where I was pouring resin live
Wow.
and just finishing these off. So they're kind of like abstract, to me, they're like abstract art pieces.
Absolutely.
But then, as a whole, you kind of know what it means, that it's a flock of birds. And just, what basically there was a quote I heard a few years ago that I've really held on to. And they said the job of an artist is to let oneself as an artist notice, to slow down enough to look around and be inspired, to let themselves truly, as an artist, let themselves be inspired and then put that inspiration into the work in hopes to inspire others. And I really kind of thought about that man, to slow down, to notice the miraculous that's all around in the mundane and the dramatic. It's all around this beauty. That's my goal, is to really let myself be moved. And these birds, I think, were birthed out of that, because you see a flock of birds fly over. Who isn't? I mean, if you let yourself really see how beautiful they can be, and the way they can fly and sink, and it, I don't know. To me,
Yeah,
they're beautiful, and
I get
so,
that. And
and
for
I love
me,
patterns too.
yeah, for me, it's also breaks the tradition of, something within a box. Like to me, that's what I am so moved about the birds. It gets out of the traditional, here is an image on a canvas. And that to me really is important. So, it's funny. So I started out by saying we're friends, and I feel like I could talk to you for
Yeah.
hours, which we do not have today. But I want to ask you, Chasen Galleries has been great in facilitating you with collectors and meeting collectors, and not only in Florida, but if I'm not mistaken, you've done some birds out of state. Is that like?
Yes, we did some. We had an installation in Virginia.
Great.
I guess this was probably 6 months ago, 5 months ago,
That's fabulous.
and yeah, I have some installations in the Cincinnati area as well. But yeah, I'm trying to think more globally, internationally, and not just locally. So,
Well, I think that's smart, and I know Andrew and Mark can help facilitate that for sure. So I think what we're going to do is wrap up here. I love
okay.
seeing your work, but what I want to do is have you back, and I want to just
Okay.
and maybe not have maybe have one image behind you, but I want to just get into a little bit more about you and your background and all because I think
Okay.
there's more to you than simply the art, and
Okay.
these are fabulous. So I think we're
It's
going
me
to finish
drawing on the
up
beach.
here. Yeah, these are great, Colin. Really great. Mr. Rowland, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, my pleasure. And we'll see you all again on the next episode. And we're definitely going to have Colin back. All right, see y'all.
Thanks, James.
Okay.